Jenny Hamilton and Sarah Doccolo are the leaders of the new collaborative arts and science program, Voyages, at the National Aquarium. Voyages is an artist residency that hosts an artist who has a deep connection to Baltimore and an interest in learning from scientists and content experts from around the world about a nature-based subject of their choosing. Together, they build an adult-only event around the artwork that reimagines the aquarium's galleries for one evening. Both women draw on their experience in community building, large-scale collaboration, and a deep love of the natural world. They believe that interdisciplinary efforts and science communication are critical, especially at a time when hope is so desperately needed. They are fueled by the belief that joy and celebration are vital parts of climate conservation. Creative Mornings Baltimore, please help me welcome Jenny and Sarah to the Creative Morning stage.
So my first day of work at the National Aquarium was Monday, March 16th, 2020. And it was also the first day that the aquarium closed because of COVID. So my first task for work was to pick up my laptop from Jenny's porch.
And my first task onboarding a new employee was the Friday prior, convincing IT to please give me the laptop. This is probably going to take a little bit longer than you guys think it's going to.
It was so wild onboarding for a job that centered community outreach and event planning when everything was closing and so much of the world was changing. We're going to scoot a little closer here. Thanks, Mario. So a little bit about me and my creative life. My background is in theater and arts education. Artistically, I've worked with multiple theater companies, and my favorite kind of work is large-scale collaboration, working with a group of people to make your collective vision come true. So this picture is from early 2020, right when I was starting at the aquarium, and I was slated to direct the Baltimore Rock Opera Society's production of Glitterous, Dragon Rising. And this was our first volunteer meeting. There's me in the front. I was so excited for this new project, my new job at the aquarium, and I was also very early in my pregnancy with my now 3-year-old daughter. 2020 was going to be awesome. Not all of them are pictured here, but a lot of these great collaborators did help me to define what my skill set was rooted in, and I am forever grateful for that. So I was also really excited to be at the aquarium and working on events at a Baltimore institution. But instead of normal onboarding at a job, I was reckoning with how can large-scale events, how can gatherings endure in this new normal, and how could I?
So completely different. Here I am alone in a forest. I'm not really alone. There are neighbors just off the screen. This photo is also taken by Creative Mornings volunteer Teresa Kyle. This is a forest patch in northeast Baltimore where a few years ago me and other neighbors in our personal lives organized to preserve it into a land trust, which reminds me of other northeast neighbors who I see in the room today, and it reminds me of all the events and public art projects, block parties, things that allowed me to meet you and allowed me to step in and be like, I can help organize your meetings and juggle all the details, because unlike Sarah's career in the arts, I think of myself as more of a professional cat herder. I'm the person usually behind the scenes, setting up the processes that then allow people to immerse themselves in an experience or a gathering or art or a forest. I know people don't always like to see how the sausage gets made behind the scenes, and I like to think of my work done well if I'm invisible. So this is where, at the start of a talk, Kira and Mario are going to kick me off stage because I say I struggle identifying as a creative. But Sarah, what do you say when I say that, or when other people are like, I'm not an artist?
People always say that I'm not an artist because they can't draw a realistic scene, or because they can't sing in perfect pitch. So I hear all the time, oh, I'm not an artist and I'm not creative. And it makes me really sad because I truly believe that everyone is an artist, but you just need to identify what is your medium. And Jenny, spreadsheets are your art form.
Shout out to Gantt charts.
And administration is your medium. So Thank you. It is truly an art form built, it's an art form to build administrative scaffolding that is fair and kind and thorough. And that attention to detail is so artistic to me, and I'm sure that there are a lot of other administrative artists in the room today. Right? So that is us individually, but we've been invited today as a duo to talk to you about endurance. And in a moment of serendipity at work this week, in a workshop we were presenting to our aquarium community, we came across this quote that we think was a perfect bridge to the creativity found within the CreativeMornings community. The thing about climate is that you can be overwhelmed by the complexity of the problem or fall in love with the creativity of the solutions.
So we also, when we came across this quote earlier this week, we worked our entire presentation around it because we were like, yeah, this is what connects the theme of endurance to our work. Endurance has been such a fun prompt for us to think about. It's brought up so much, and we're going to kind of talk through kind of like 4 little bucket areas of it today. So endurance of an idea versus endurance requiring evolution. Endurance being fueled by joy and hope. Endurance possible because of community. And we're here as a duo today, but we cannot take sole credit for what is a collective effort. And side note, this is the end of our deck. This photo is going to stay up with us for the rest of it because it's these and dozens of other people who are part of today's story about endurance. And then we'll talk about endurance as a marathon, not a sprint, because hands up, who is exhausted? Marathons are exhausting. I am very tired. And warning of disappointment, this isn't the talk about self-care needed for endurance. Maybe we can dig into it in the Q&A, but I'm not very good at it, I admit. So these 4 areas, when we were kind of bucketing them for the talk, we were like, oh, we actually talk about this to each other all the time. We talk about it when we are feeling the crushing weight of working a full-time job and full-time parenting during a pandemic. But we keep on going, we keep on enduring because we believe that the thing that we are creating is so damn good. We believe in it so much, and that's what keeps us from drowning in the existential dread around climate change. Because yes, the aquarium is a conservation organization. You could think of it as a tourist attraction or the fishbowl down by the harbor. But we talk about climate change and the impact on the ocean planet all of the time. And in 2020, when I was onboarding a new employee with an arts career background, I was definitely talking about it all the time. But I hired you because I had an instinct, Sarah, that you would help us fall in love with the creativity of the solutions. Because see, a few years prior, I was catching wind that a large-scale legacy program is going to be transitioned over to my team to rip apart and reimagine, or to help it evolve, help it endure. And in 2020, 2021, when I was also like, LOL leadership, you can't possibly still make me do this in a pandemic. We're going to adjust that timeline, right? I still feel like what we ultimately created, it wouldn't have been the same if we weren't in that moment in time of feeling so overwhelmed by climate change and environmental injustices and wanting to do something creative. So, Sarah, tell me about your experience in 2020 with climate grief.
I had a time. Climate grief is just that. It is a deep grief related to what is happening to our climate, to our environment. And in 2020, so much of our climate reality and the depth of it and the breadth of it really was news to me. And now it was a driving part of my job. And so the grief paired with that, while being a new parent, it was overwhelming. And I was surrounded by my aquarium community now, and all of these people who are dedicating their life to conservation in some way. And I was also recognizing that my privilege now in this community is to get to look for and participate in those creative solutions. And I was a welcome voice. It was me who waited tables and did rock operas and was basically a clown in elementary schools for a long time. And Jenny was my Yoda. Right, I know. She was my sister and guide through all of that. And I love saying that she's my boss. So let's talk about the idea about endurance of an idea versus like endurance requiring evolution. So as you heard in our bio, we lead the new collaborative arts and sciences program, Voyages. I love saying it like that. And you just heard about it in the giveaway, thank you, Chuck, as an event. But I'd like to talk about Voyage's origin. So as Jenny referenced, for 25 years, the aquarium ran a lecture series. I would like to pause for a second. So earlier you saw a flyer with like a drag queen looking amazing. So that program used to be the aquarium flying out like Jack Hanna to come to the aquarium and sit at a platform and talk at you for an hour. So just like think that's where it started. This is where we are now. Now, I know that a lot of us in this room really do love lectures. And
You're at one this morning.
We're in one right now. But what we did have is we had an opportunity to think about what is the root intention of a lecture and to learn from experts, right? So how could we have that intention, that idea, endure? So in order for an idea to endure over time, some aspect of it does need to evolve with the time to still be effective, to be shared, to be relevant. So we kept the idea of connecting people to experts. That was the idea that endured, and evolved the format around it to rethink who is the messenger of expertise. So artists and scientists often will see each other as others, right? But they're really just both trying to understand the world and then interpret it for others. Art is expressive, it is personal, it is fun. Visual art, theater, music, they are all tools for communication. And throughout human history, art has been a tool for recording and sharing information, for the expression of great ideas, inspiring hearts and minds. And in any movement, including the environmental movement, we need artists at the table. Thank you. So, how does Voyages work? I don't know. So let's talk about that. So the recipe for Voyages is Baltimore art plus science information about the natural world plus gathering in community. So each chapter in this series is an opportunity to offer the aquarium's platform to Baltimore creatives, to share the aquarium's resources, to build on a Voyages community that celebrates the natural world. And I'm the curator for the event series overall, and then also operate as an event producer. So each chapter starts as a research residency that culminates in a celebration that we have collaboratively built around the artwork. So the first step for each chapter is to ask, what is something that the artist has always wanted to know more about related to the aquarium's mission? The answer to this question then guides the research phase, where our in-house experts provide tours and interviews and hands-on experiences for the artist, and me. And then we arrange for scientists or different content experts outside of the aquarium, this is outside of the aquarium, to then share their expertise. So for example, chapter 1, our artist was a breath artist and beatboxer, vocal percussionist. He wanted to understand how animals communicate and the shared traits of musicality between animals and humans. Cool. That is a field called bioacoustics, and that studies biologically produced sounds in nature. So bleep, bleep, bloop, we called up Cornell University and the people there who were studying that specific thing. So we learned that studying the sound of your environment over time can teach you so much and help to guide your preservation efforts. For other chapters, the artist wanted to learn about oysters and water quality data. One artist wanted to learn about the science behind why being around water made her feel so calm and restored. Another artist wanted to learn about the beauty of adaptation in nature. And what we've kept finding each time is that we call up a science content expert that we used to fly out, make them stand on a lectern. They're like, yes, please, more of this. Interdisciplinary is the answer. Us scientists are exhausted, screaming into the void. And then the artists come in and do what they do best, create. Fueled by a new or deeper understanding of an idea, and then Jenny and I build a team to create a celebration that is thematically connected and then supports communicating that idea to our Voyages community. Another example from chapter 2, we had experimental electronic and acoustic musicians who wanted to understand the ecosystems that make up the Chesapeake Bay. And we visited an oyster hatchery. where we got to see oysters spawning. It was amazing, and we really learned to appreciate how critical the filtering capabilities are and the efforts around like rebuilding up oyster beds. So let's connect these artists to open source water quality data that the Maryland Department of Natural Resources collects in the Inner Harbor. And the artists fed that data into a computer program, connected it to their synthesizers, and then sonified it. And then it was in a soundscape that was streamed into headphones that I rented for guests to wear while touring the galleries and looking at a shark. I'm so in love with that concept so much. They were, yeah, thank you. That's Jessica Keys and Patrick McMahon, just very talented people. So at the event, we brought in our friend from the Department of Natural Resources, who we originally got our data from, and he's like, wait, what are you doing with my data? That is so cool. And when he attended the event, he was like, as soon as I heard that deep bass tone, I knew that that day there was an algae bloom. So, did we evolve an idea so it could endure? I think so. And every decision that led us to this event and now guides the program is rooted in joyous, fun celebration of the natural world. It's getting excited about understanding something in a new way. Which brings us to our next point, endurance being fueled by joy and hope.
So you heard as they read our bio that we believe joy and celebration are vital parts of the climate conversation. So what does that mean? I studied psychology. I also just found myself at a science-based conservation organization. If you ask me any fish questions later, I'm going to remind you I'm not the aquarium's animal person. I'm the aquarium's people person. But I'm fortunate in my career that I've worked alongside other social scientists who, on the social science side of environmentalism, and have taught me really interesting things about the psychology of behavior change to mobilize action. So the environmental crisis is bleak. When you think about it at the scale, it makes you feel small and alone. That breeds hopelessness and inaction. So hot tip, anyone else talking about environmentalism, making art for it, if you just talk about the gloom and doom, that doesn't motivate. That is a fast track to your audience's shutting down in apathy, AKA the opposite of endurance. Instead, going back to that quote from earlier, if you lead with things that foster hope, creative solutions, reminders of what positive progress has been achieved, and you recommend actions, so not just awareness building, actual actions that are easy to do, fun to do, and you see a whole bunch of other people doing it around you too, then behavior is more likely to change. So this isn't toxic positivity. It is human to need joy, to keep going, to keep enduring. Fun, joy is a form of activism. It's radical. It gives us hope to keep going. So we need more joyous gatherings. We need to see others alongside us playing, having childlike wonder, pressing their nose up against the glass with their friends and a local beer in hand, and maybe listening to a soundscape from local artists. We need to think about these experiences as being fun to move away from perfectionism in environmental action. So let's be weird, romantic, spiritual, silly, joyous. Let's use the aquarium as a community resource to think about how the community can fall in love with creative solutions. So you see this ethos driving how we created Voyages. This idea of joyous gatherings created by a whole bunch of Baltimoreans brings us to another theme of endurance being possible because of community and collaboration.
So an individual endures, but a community sustains. Endurance is a collective effort. Large-scale collaboration leads to a richer experience, whether a theater production or in activism. When more voices are present, whatever you are building will be more robust. Collaboration does not come without challenges. Community comes with challenges. And that's part of the reason why I consider the kind of just administration that Jenny excels at as such a vital art form to guide equitable experiences. So I really struggled with the definition of endurance when we first started thinking about this talk, because endurance, my understanding of it was always endurance in the face of or in spite of, which can feel very lonely and is a lot easier to succumb to gloom and doom. But this community of aquarium folks and my friends and artists and Baltimore, these are the communities that I consider myself a part of, and that connection is what sustains me. So whatever it is that you are trying to endure through or in spite of. Find your team, find your allies, find your Yoda, and build something that you can sustain together. Make connections that keep you running that marathon and not giving up.
Which was our final theme about endurance as a marathon, not a sprint. So I want to recognize this historic, iconic Baltimore space we're in that's endured through the decades of Lexington Market, and acknowledge we are coming from another iconic historic Baltimore space of the aquarium that has a much different relationship with the people who live here than this market does. Voyages as one program is not going to fix all the DEI issues of an organization, but it's a place where we do apply the principles. Organizational change is long and slow. It is a marathon. Righting environmental injustices is going to take a marathon. And so what I see here in this picture is my marathon team. I see colleagues who are making some good trouble. I see badass scientists who are like starting nonprofits to diversify the aquaculture industry. I see Baltimore artists, Shoda K, Jessica Keys, Patrick McMinn, Easy Jackson, Trolled Nature. And I see community advisors who care so deeply about Baltimore that they lend their wisdom because they want Voyages to work. They want more Voyagers, the event attendees who come along on these journeys to explore heady, nerdy science through weird, fun art. They want more Voyagers joining in until we have a movement built and ready to be mobilized into advocacy and action. So I see in this picture that Baltimore endures, like I hope the aquarium is enduring. So maybe our communities can hang out one time because the planet needs it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, real quick though, happy day after your birthday, Sarah.
Yes, yes.
Mario is going to sing you a quick birthday song.
Okay, you ready? Ready? 1, 2, 3. This is your birthday song. It isn't very long.
So now we are at the question and answer portion of our morning, and I'm going to run around and hand you a microphone if you have a question. So don't be shy, y'all, in your questions. Ooh, we got one back here.
Good morning, everyone. My question is, how many gallons of water, or like how much how much water do the oysters filter per day?
That is a great question.
For the science content experts that we will ask and get back to you.
Also, you can check the oyster hatchery that we visited was at the University of Maryland Environmental Center on the Eastern Shore. Honestly, their website and oyster hatchery has so many great information and could give you the actual number. I don't want to misquote it, but that's one of the some of the scientists we got to work with and help the artwork. So definitely check out the content that they have available.
Hello. I am a sound designer, so my question is biased, but I have, was there something that inspired you for Voyages to be specifically a sound-based collaboration? What kind of went into that
Sure, I can
choice?
definitely speak to that. So sound was our first medium. Each chapter within the series, as we continue, will have a different group of collaborators, potentially different mediums, but we wanted to start with sound just because as we were learning how to do basically a pop-up gallery, a pop-up installation in the aquarium, sound was something that could so transform the space so quickly. So that's why we wanted to, as we were piloting the program, to start with sound. And we also had an artist in mind who was a sound artist and could help us kind of make that first one work.
Good morning. You talked in your presentation about endurance being more than just facing resistance, but in any change of a longstanding institution, there will be some resistance to it. So can you talk about either navigating the resistance of changing the format of this lecture series, and then maybe the analogy of that we're facing as far as changing climate harmful institutions and trying to navigate the pitch of more creative, accessible, and positive solutions?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing, again, when we were preparing that didn't end up making it into the presentation, but I've been at the aquarium for 16 years. So, but my career has been endurance because I am pushing for organizational change, and I feel like my work there will be done when there's no more to do. It is long, it is slow. This one example, we had to go through many rounds of pitching and kind of reshaping until we did get the buy-in. And I will say also, in that group photo way towards the back was our CEO. So it's slow, it's long, but that could be a whole other talk.
Good morning. I have a degree in photography, but I now work in HR, which sounds sad, but I'm happy about it. I wondered what were some ways that you honed your administrative artistic skills?
Trial and error.
Yeah, like Sarah just said, trial and error. I mean, I think I had talked about, the environmental movement overall, and I think everything, like we're all need to unlearn our perfectionism. And if this spreadsheet isn't keeping all of the tasks on order, then I'm going to rework it and we're going to try a whole different one. And I think it's about then having a really good team that you can be vulnerable with. And can see, we all are just working towards the same goal. I will figure out a way to get this burden off of you, shift things around. So yeah, trial and error. Thank you for defining that. Yeah.
Hi, morning. So coming from a, STEM creative background, and health and wellness, have you guys ever considered, or do you guys ever have events that, sound healing, meditation, that type of stuff, that is integrated into the community?
Sure, thank you. When I was first starting and we were looking at evolving the format to become Voyages, we looked at a lot of research about the aquariums being a space of healing. There's a lot of research about how it affects your blood pressure, just neurologically what happens being in an aquarium, being in and around water. So actually for Chapter 3, which is back in July, we brought in performance-based artist Nicoletta de la Brown, who was a Creative Mornings speaker, I think earlier this year, right? And she was really interested in exploring the science behind that feeling and that meditation. So that's what Chapter 3's experience was, because it was her desire, her thematic intention that we build the experience off of. And then we brought in sound healers at the beginning to help kind of guide people as they came in, and also brought in Ballet After Dark, other Creative Mornings, Tide Courtney, just to have a group of people dedicated to art as healing in a space that we were trying to transform for the event specifically that night to be a space of healing.
Good morning. So my question is really, you've talked a lot about sound and the impact and power of sound. Makes total sense in the aquarium and with oceanic life, right? But I'm kind of curious, what other mediums are you guys starting to kind of think about and consider in terms of translating information and research into art? And I ask this because I work in data visualization and as a graphic designer. So this is something I'm really interested in.
Sure. So the first 2 chapters we worked with sound artists, and then for Chapter 3 over the summer, Nicoletta's work was also film. So she recorded films that were projected throughout the space. For Chapter 4, our artist is a drag artist, so we're celebrating the artistry of drag, communicating ideas about adaptation through that. So I kind of wanted to pair more performance-based artists and then kind of explore different mediums as we continue. But future mediums could be photography, theater, which I'm very excited to maybe check out some immersive theater in the next couple of years inside the aquarium as well. So something different. And culinary arts is also something that we've talked a lot about how to bring that into the aquarium for the event.
Hi there. Thank you for your talk this morning. I do a lot of work helping business owners build community, and my question for you is a little bit nerdy, maybe in the spreadsheets. Often I'm struggling with convincing like the ROI of community building, and it's hard to project that. And I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to convince like business leadership the importance of community, and even if you have any ROI tips, return on investment.
I think the idea of collecting information on like qualitative data is already so hard, especially in the arts. I think a lot of administrators in here can attest to that. I think what we're trying to do is invite as many people as possible to the table and then really present any ideas that are come up with in the group as a collective effort. So keep pointing to the fact that we're bringing in our community advisor group, highlighting that different, like with Voyages as the example, we bring in all of our like food vendors from the community. We bring in all of our even production companies we work with. We try to keep them local. And honestly, we're like, this many Baltimore people came to this. Like, I'm not sure exactly how to bridge it to that, but I think you might be able to help me. Like, we bring in people and we show our leadership, look at all these people we brought to the table.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we continually talk about is it takes time, and time is a resource. Time needs to be resourced and funded and paid for just as much as anything else. And so it might seem like it's taking a lot longer, and we just need to keep reminding this is the process, and help make space for it. And then as a team, kind of juggle around and throw the ball of like, well, maybe this isn't really in your job, but your skill set is really good on that. We're going to punt it over here, and we're just going to keep shifting everything around because we really just need to let the process happen.
I want to add to that, Becky, and we can talk more about that because that has a lot to do with my day job, which isn't Creative Mornings because we're all volunteers, I want to remind you. But sustainability is also a really big metric there. But next question.
I publish career guides, currently one on those navigating the call of the sea. And I'm wondering what your exposure with people that have come from like the maritime trades or into that, and then what sort of like that cross-fertilization has brought to the aquarium.
Maritime trades?
Yeah, so captains, sea captains, those who, anything in that area, diesel mechanics, also sailmakers. I imagine you're marine biologists you work with, but yeah.
Yeah, for some of the past chapters, we've worked in the intersection of like science research and industry. Specifically in chapter 2, we worked with researcher Imani Black. She founded a group called Minorities in Aquaculture, which is really trying to, she's creating educational resources to bring more people of color to the aquaculture industry, but also working with kind of conservation groups and just different, I think, more academic groups around that industry to make this like intersectional, like uplifting industry and research and conservation simultaneously, which is that intersectionality. So that is one example of how we've kind of worked with that field.
We have time for a couple more questions, and I see 1, 2, and 3, okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much for your talk. I'm always curious about people's lineages, like your history to nature. And so I'm curious, what's a point like throughout your lifetime and journey where nature connectedness is now showing up in what you're doing at the aquarium?
I have to remind myself to get into the galleries and be in these habitats. It's really hard. I can get so stuck in my work, but I have to remember, like, you know, when we were working with Nicoletta and she was talking about the mental health benefits of just immersing yourselves in a coral reef, and I had to remind myself to get out there and do it. So I try to do that as much as I can. Have coffee in that big like underwater viewing bubble where you just really feel like you're in it and the turtles are around you. So that's how I've been most recently, trying to connect myself back to nature.
This year has definitely been about like making like little version of myself really happy. And my family's all from Baltimore, but I grew up in a rural area. So Baltimore was like my big city. And I guess an example of what I was like as a kid is that I used to pretend that I could control the wind. And I think just that childlike connection to nature is something that I feel so deeply satisfied in, like getting to help, having that kind of desire be a part of my work. So yeah.
Hi, I love that question. That was beautiful. I'm a fellow spreadsheet lover as well, so and I'm in the arts field, so that's rare to find. I would love to know how to get involved, not as an attendee. Like, are you guys open to volunteers? Are you, like, what does that look like? Or is it not an option?
No, so we have been from the beginning like having to be really, really candid. Also, like internally, like the aquarium has not worked this way before. We're new to arts integration. We're new to this kind of large-scale community collaboration. We need to just kind of see how it organically grows and what people want with it. And we're starting to get those kind of questions. So I now know, like, my job is now to figure out a volunteer program. I need to figure out, we now have 4 artists under our belt. How can we keep in touch with them as like an alumni group? Because their projects continue to evolve. They keep being called back to it. So yeah, that's validating. Let me see how I can add that into my workflow.
But sign up for the aqua.org/voyages newsletter. And that is a good way at least to find out about the events. And as we continue to grow those opportunities, that will definitely be the first place that we put them.
We have the last question.
Oh boy. So I think it's a really amazing program to be able to offer this experience for adults, because so often arts and museums have not all the time, but a bit of an emphasis on programming for kids. But I'm curious, because I know we're in a time right now when arts organizations are really struggling to engage adults, and arts organizations are coming up with really cool ideas, but there's this huge gulf between this amazing idea that people within the organization are excited about and being able to have people in this post or late stage pandemic world actually come to an in-person event, especially when there's, like you said, all this exhaustion and busyness and the whole, attention economy. So I'm curious how you've navigated that with this Voyages program.
The more people who work on the project, the more people will come see it. And I think that that has been the root of it, is that the more people we have in the advisory group and the artists can build out a team, it's kind of getting to go to an event that you were a part of. And I think that that is what is keeping people coming in, even though behavior is so different. Like guest behavior, how people buy tickets is different for events, for parties, for celebrations. But again, the more people who work on it, the more people will want to come see it.
Y'all, help me thank Sarah and Jenny.